spent countless hours in the garage with your dad. Now investing in that old car and working on it with your son reminds you of him. And his legacy lives on. Fund your passion with a low-interest home equity line of credit from Bank of Blue Valley.
I think it's the software glitching because that time I did hit the right video.
Our panelists, who everyone came here to see, are probably like, why are they so shocked? I don't think in 3 years I loved it. Like I'm so used to it.
And then it started counting down. I was like, I don't know what to do because if I just cut it off at 5, I don't know. So, anyways, you got 2 countdowns today. Hi, Sky. How are you?
Good. Aaron, how are you doing?
Okay. Listen, I am completely and totally obsessed with the Taylor Swift Travis Kelce thing. And I want to explain to you everything that I've learned since last Tuesday. Are you ready?
I am all in, and I feel like my wife needs to get off her call with Oracle right now because not only does she, but my neighbor and my other neighbor are going to a Chiefs event tonight because all they want to hear about is Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift.
So I have a theory that they've been dating way longer than we think. And I think when he brought up the bracelet, that was a genius marketing move for Taylor Swift of a soft launch of their relationship. And the reason being, I don't know if you've heard this. Well, this is a fact. And I'm not going to know their names. So if you know their names, say it in the comments. But Taylor Swift's movie opened this past weekend. Of course, we saw it on opening night. And her main dancer, this fabulous man, his brother is on the Chiefs. And so that dancer's been on a lot of her tours with her, and his brother is one of the Chiefs players. So I think at some point they met before, and then the bracelet thing was a soft launch. And then today I heard that she bought a house in Kansas City, which you said you haven't heard yet, but we know Travis bought a new house. But I heard that they bought separate houses, and I'm just like overly obsessed with trying to figure out everything about the relationship, and I have no idea why. I think it's because I'm lonely and not in a relationship. So
No, it's not that at all. It's because we're all obsessed. Duh, we're all thinking about it. And Aaron, I'm telling you, it's people that are not. Saturday Night Live does skit on it, and people are like that are not football fans are all of a sudden football football fans because of Taylor Swift.
I know, it's fun. Well, you already know me and my daughter are huge Swifties. We had a suite at the concert. We've been doing all things. So we were already all in. And then I used to sit on the Shadow Buddies board with Travis Kelce. So I kind of felt personally invested as well. But it's almost weird how obsessed I am. It's teetering on strange.
No, it's not. It's really interesting. And you're connecting dots just like our panelists connect dots in the business community. And like you and I connect dots in the business community. But sometimes when something's entertaining and you got a podcast on, you got to talk about what the people want to hear.
I know. So we'll just talk about Taylor Swift all the time. I'm just kidding. Okay, so here's the deal. If you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, please let us know you're here. Tell us where you're watching. Paul's always the first one here. He says,
Paul.
Whatever that means. Paul's got a different joke every week. Paul is like what we call a fan favorite. Like he is here every week. He shows up on time.
He watched from LinkedIn recently, just so it wasn't the ham radio. He tried to throw us for a loop.
Dad joke every week for us. I do want to, can I give a shout out to another live show out of Kansas City?
Yeah.
I want everybody to watch it on Monday because I'm really excited about it. So it's our friend Jennifer Catrulia. It's her show over on the Family Office Association page. They are actually having Consuela Vanderbilt on their show. So she is 7th generation Vanderbilt, and she just did a huge thing at New York Fashion Week. She has a new line with Gloria Estefan and her husband. And I'm super geeked out to watch the show. So I saw it today. So I want to give a shout out. Everybody make sure you go. Mark, you can remind me about the show on the Family Office Association page. I'm really excited to watch that show. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, Jennifer's way cooler than like everyone in Kansas City because she gets to do cool stuff all throughout the country.
Yeah, she does. They just had Gary Cardone, who is Grant Cardone's brother, on their show. Right. I'm like, hey, I'm really impressed with their show. So make sure you go watch that. We've got Amy here on LinkedIn, and we got Elizabeth watching LinkedIn from her happy place, Colorado Springs. Oh, we're national. Thanks. Okay, let's do this. How was your week?
It was great. Football game where we didn't see each other, but we all looked at Taylor Swift. Charity event where we saw each other. Saturday wedding where I heard the news, but you already knew about Travis Kelce's new home. Sunday, children's birthday party. And for you had a lot of theater activity going on. So I'm excited for our panelists to tell us what they've been up to as well.
Cool. Okay, well, let's bring them. Nobody cares about us. Also, shout out to Bank Blue Valley and Birds and McDonnell. I'm going to have to move this thing down here today because we only have 4 guests, and it does a weird thing when you have 4 guests. So I do want to give a shout out to Bank Blue Valley and Birds and McDonnell for sponsoring the show. As always, you guys are the best. Okay, let's bring in our guest. We're out about this. Let me move this. All right, our first guest today is one of my favorite people in the entire world. One of my favorite friends, badass, my whole family's been on this show. Kristi Hartmann, and of course, the one and only and an icon in my industry, Mark Mears. Hi guys, how are you?
Hello.
Hi.
Great, awesome.
All the shines on you guys today because we're at half the guests, so you guys are people are gonna get to know you so well. I'm so excited about this because you guys are 2 pretty badass people. So let's just jump into it. Kristi, who are you? What do you do? And how do you get to Kansas City? And be long-winded because we only.
Well, usually lawyers are good at that, but
Yeah.
I tend to not be, so I'll do what I can. So I grew up in Kansas. Okay, what was the first question? Okay, I'm Kristi Hartmann, and I am the owner of Hartmann Law Office that's been around since about 2008. And so we're hitting on like my 16th year, which is really crazy because time really flies. But I grew up in Kansas City, and my family is still here. And so it was a great way to, a good reason to open up a business here because you already have connections rather than starting from scratch in a town. But I always wanted to go into transactional work and estate planning because I'm not a adversarial person. I don't like litigation. I don't like to fight people. It makes me want to cower in a corner. And so I went into I do estate planning. I do probate administration, trust administration. When people aren't fighting, they just need, I don't help people dispute and fight each other. I help people push assets, like plan for death. And then I help administer estates after people die. So I'm kind of like the lawyer of death. It's not the best coined term, but
Is that branded?
No, but I should.
Yeah, you should. Let's talk about it.
I am a Scorpio, and Scorpios are supposed to be really good at like things that have to do with death. But I also have a lot of business clients. Most of them are local, small, mid-size. Some, operate just here in Kansas City. Some operate nationwide. And I see some really awesome, I have some really awesome entrepreneurial clients that are doing some cool stuff. I help with formation, governing contracts, partnership and shareholder agreements. But probably one of my favorite things is I help people buy and sell businesses. And love it because everybody is there because they want to be, for the most part. I've had there may be a couple of acquisitions where the seller was in bankruptcy, the business was in bankruptcy and had to sell their assets to pay creditors, and I represented the buyer, and so the seller didn't really want to be there in that instance. But for the most part, I love seeing people retiring and they're really proud of this business that they've developed, and they're selling to people who are this entrepreneurial spirit and want to work for themselves and all the cool stuff that comes along with that. So anyway, that's what I do. And I love it.
Kristi, did you ever study the Vanderbilts and your education for what you do and how they transition wealth?
No, I did not. I've read The Midas Curse, which I think a financial planner friend of mine gave it to me, which relates to, and I don't know if this has anything to do with the Vanderbilt's ideas, but basically you don't want to just give all your stuff, particularly business interests, to your kids. You want to make them work for it a little bit because, especially in the business side, when you're passing down, businesses from generation to generation, they don't necessarily take on the appreciation of having built it up from the bottom. And so that's what the Midas Curse was. But what did the Vanderbilts, like, what was the context there?
The Tucker Car Anderson Cooper just wrote a book on his family, which are the Vanderbilts, and the Midas touch is something that people talk about as well. But I was just curious because you get to see it in real time. And so speaking on that, what is I'm just really fascinated with it. So thank you for humoring me. But after reading that book and studying it, what are your thoughts in terms of how you educate your clients on what they gift to children?
So for the most part, I do occasionally have clients who they want to exclude a child for whatever reason, estrangement, maybe they have some sort of addiction issue, maybe they're irresponsible, and so they need to have somebody kind of manage their money on their behalf. But for the most part, my clients, I find, want to give everything equally to the kids. The more important question, well, and of course, there's also charitable intent. So I have clients that, do you have any interest in giving some of your money to charity or having that as a backup? So I always discuss that with the clients. But the more important part is how, who you're going to appoint to manage the stuff and administer it when you pass away. And, a lot of my clients will default to the oldest child, but that just because they're the oldest doesn't mean they're the best suited for it. And so I think the important thing is just to have a discussion about the dynamic in the family, which can be very, very interesting, by the way. That's probably the more important part than like gifting businesses. You want to, has there been a child who's been more involved in the ongoing operations? There's a lot of things to think about.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You and Aaron were buddies because Aaron, I feel like, would love to hear about this stuff. Sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
No, we are buddies. We've been buddies for a really long time. I don't know if you can do this, but if you can, what's the craziest thing you've ever seen?
Like in my business?
Yeah, like when it comes to, because I remember when I was a little kid and my dad and his brothers and sisters were trying to divide up assets after my grandma died. And I just remember how loud and crazy it was. And I was little, right? So I imagine you see some pretty insane things.
Yeah, well, probably something I see commonly, which isn't all that crazy, and I'll save the best for last.
Nice.
I'll have heirs of an estate harassing me. When am I going to get my money? And my favorite response is, your parents' money is not ready to distribute. This is not your money until it's in your hands. But no, I had, since I don't handle disputes, I refer.
Sorry to interrupt. Why, aren't they your because they're never going to be your clients, so you don't mind shooting them straight?
I do owe somewhat of a duty to the beneficiaries. So if I don't properly advise the representative to handle the estate the way they should, then I can be liable to the beneficiaries. So there are aspects that, but as far as I don't have a duty to communicate with them necessarily, and I certainly don't have a duty to distribute money to them if they command it. So
I'm a sales guy, so I'm a sissy, and Erin and I are having this conversation the other week. Erin's just really upfront with people, but I think she's more caring than I am. Where I'm like, I don't want the controversy of it. I just love that you're like, it's not your money, and I don't care.
I had some people that just in the last couple of years that were really getting on my nerves. And so I finally stood up for myself, and because I made the mistake of calling him on my cell phone. And so I'd be on vacation. I'd get these nasty texts, just ask AJ, like we live on a lake and we're floating in the boat, and I look at a text and I freak out. And he's like, it's those guys again, isn't it? He's like, tell them off, which he said other words, but it can be interesting that way.
Okay, you brought up AJ. So tell us who AJ is, and tell us, you're kind of like, there's a trio of this family that's kind of all badasses in business. So we made AJ tell us. So you tell us who you're related to as well, because they've all been on the show.
Yeah, AJ Steckline is my really cute husband, and he's also an attorney, but he does very different stuff. So he's in litigation. He represents consumers against credit reporting agencies if they misreport stuff on your credit, whether it's through identity theft or someone else's debt. And so he sues like Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, very interesting stuff. and very niched. And then he also does like business probate and trust litigation, which is intense because there's a ton of it. Like dockets are just filled with these types of disputes. But yeah, that's what he does. And then I assume we're going to talk about Maria. Maria Flynn is my sister-in-law, AJ's sister, and she's this awesome, she has experience in tech startups and been CEO, and she's writing a book that's close to being published, which is really awesome. I'm proud of her, and I think she's awesome. So
I just think it's so cool that you three are all such badasses. So.
That's very nice. Thank you. I would say they are more than me, but thank you.
I'd say all three of you guys are. Awesome. All right, Mark, who are you? What do you do? And how do you get to Kansas City?
Yeah, I'm Mark Mears, and I am the founder and chief growth officer for Leaf Growth Ventures. And essentially taking the 35 years of working in corporate America in a variety of different brands that you may or may not recognize, PepsiCo, Pizza Hut, Frito-Lay, McDonald's, JCPenney, Universal Studios, and the Cheesecake Factory, among others. And so I've written a book called The Purposeful Growth Revolution, 4 Ways to Grow from Leader to Legacy Builder. And so it's based on a model that I developed kind of through an epiphany several years ago that's founded on a leaf as a symbol of growth and rebirth. And the leaf is also an acronym, which stands for leadership, engagement, accountability, and fulfillment, which if you think about a 4-circle Venn diagram, they're all integrated. And my goal is to help individuals and teams and organizations find purpose in fulfilling their true growth potential. You could maybe call me a growth junkie. I love growth in all of its forms. And so that's what I'm doing now, is using that book as a foundation for speaking and consulting. And I'm putting together a pretty cool e-learning curriculum, which will help people literally put together their own purposeful growth plan that will meld their purpose in both life and work together to where it can be much more of a fulfilling, process instead of just, hey, we were asleep about a third of our lives as adults. We're at work about a third, some a little more, a little less, depending on how much you're sleeping or working. And then we have 1/3 of our life that we're working or that we're living. Why can't we at least combine our work and our life in ways that are more purposeful, that get us up in the morning and make us energized and feel like we're making a difference, and not just drawing a paycheck and working for the weekend, but literally making a difference in our own lives and the lives of those we serve in the process. And so Simon Sinek, a lot of people know his Start With Why movement, and I buy into it to a point. But as you know, as a branding expert, it's always starts with who, and it's who you serve. And so in marketing, we'd say it's our target audience. In sales, they may call it a ideal customer avatar. It may develop personas that have images of who their ideal customer may be. Well, I believe, like that 4-circle Venn diagram, there are 4 realms of service. There is spiritual, relational, professional, and personal. And again, all revolving around purposeful growth. So that's kind of where my head's at now. And I've just recently kind of written a second book, which is through Mission Matters. And this other gentleman is Adam Torres. And the chapter is all about 4D branding. And you can kind of get this idea that this 4-circle Venn diagram is a big part of what I stand for. And it really happens to work pretty well as a foundation for many concepts. So if you think about 4D branding, what does that mean? Most people think it's a brand, it's Frito-Lay, it's Pepsi, it's whatever. Like, no, that's just the external brand. But underneath the surface is the personal brand, right? And this is what you do so well, Aaron, you and your team, is help people grow into the personal brand that allows them to be the best version of themselves. And that asks the question, who am I? And so again, 4-circle Venn diagram, you move on to the internal brand, which is the collective we, the sum of all the individual team members that now ask the question, what do we believe or what do we stand for? And then you have the external brand, which is your customers, and it could be your communities. And that asks the question, what value is exchanged here? And then that leads us to the employer brand, which is so big these days because of the lack of qualified talent out there. Everyone's scrambling, trying to not only hire, but also retain top talent in this world of quiet quitting and people churning and burning and going other places. So that asks the question, do I belong here? And that's a really important one, because I really believe the challenge for leaders into the future is not just creating a culture of growth, but indeed a community. There's a big, thing in my world is words matter. And so culture is not a bad word, but think of it this way. A culture may just be a place where someone feels like they're part of. That's not a bad thing, but a community is a place where someone feels like they belong in. You see how that makes someone feel more unique and valued? And think about DEI. Diversity just gets us in the door. Equity gives us an equal voice. Inclusion gives us a seat at the table. All that's good. But if we don't feel like we belong, we're probably not likely to be as vulnerable to give of our very best, because we don't want to rock the boat. As Hamilton says, just want to be in the room where it happens, right? So that's really where I'm at today, and how I got to Kansas City is, again, as a kid growing up in Wichita, we talked about this before the show started, about one of my perfect weekends was to come up to Kansas City. My dad was from Kansas City, so my grandmother still lived up here. And when we got a chance to go to a Royals game and Worlds of Fun on a weekend and hang out at the plaza, that was great. So I knew I'd always end up here after living in, Chicago twice, Dallas twice, Atlanta, Los Angeles, Austin, Wichita, and now here. So Kansas City is now home, and I'm proud to now be part of this great community.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully I asked this right. And I want the viewers to answer this too. What is going on?
Sorry, that's my computer phone. Sorry.
Oh, somebody got somewhere to be. No, you're okay. I just want to make sure you're okay. Okay. It's October, so it could have been a ghost. I didn't know. Anyways, here's the
I
deal.
have toddlers that joke around ghosts all the time right now.
Yeah, they're really funny. I feel weird about company culture right now, and this is why. Because what I am finding from all my mentorship and my personal team, right, is that Gen Z doesn't really seem to care about company culture as much as we've put into it in so long, right? And especially if they get their wish, which is to work from home, they want to clock in, they want to do their job, and they want to focus the rest of their life on their stuff, right? They want to know, what do I got to do? Tell me what to do. I'm going to get it done. And I find they're harder workers than millennials, but they just really don't care about company culture as much, especially in the more digital world. So what do you say about that? Like, how does community feel? Because I've always hated the word company culture. Like, I feel like for so long we threw a beer tap out. We called it company culture, right? I don't feel like anyone's really nailed this really well. I feel like Silicon Valley was getting a little bit to it, right? At the beginning, before it got too cool. I feel like they started to, but now that people want to work at home and do their own thing, how do you add that community piece? Because I spend a lot of time on TikTok and with Gen Z, and they don't want it. They're like, I got my own community, I got my own friends. They're right here all day long with me, which didn't used to be the case, but now they are, right? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a different world of work. I mean, it was moving in this direction, but COVID was like putting it in a microwave and turning it on high. And it really, I believe, kind of stimulated the trend lines and reduced the adoption curve by maybe several years. And so now we're all here. And those of us who've been leaders, and we maybe led in kind of a command and control style that we grew up in, that's not the way millennials and Gen Z want it today. But I think, there's still basic human traits that are important. And my goal is, through my book and my studies and my consulting and speaking, is I want to help put the human back in human resources. And I think to do that, all we need is love. And I'm not talking about the love that's going to get you a quick call from HR and escorted out of the building. I'm talking about a foundation. Touch. Yeah, no. That's not what I'm talking about. Listen, observe, value, and empower. These are basic needs that go back to Maslow. If you read Gallup's annual State of the Global Workplace reports, They get after some of the most disengaging aspects of people's work. And so by listening to someone, you can do that whether you're remote or in person. And not just listen to them and what they're saying, but also what they're not saying. If you're remote and in this world that we're living in today with so many outside distractions, and COVID seems like a long past distant memory, but here we have a lot of distractions going on. There's people that are going through mental health crisis. There's people that are, maybe have a sick baby or maybe have other personal things going on that's impacting their work. And if you're able to build a community, a relationship where you're listening and reading between the lines and asking good questions, and then you're observing them in real time and providing real-time coaching. I mean, we live in Kansas City. I mean, Andy Reid coaches every single day, and his coaches on the field coach every single day. We don't wait for the dreaded annual performance appraisal that no one does well and nobody likes, but providing that real-time coaching and encouragement, and then valuing the whole person. Again, the four aspects of who they serve, their spiritual world, whatever that may look like, their relational world, their family, their friends, their neighbors, their communities, their professional world, who they serve at work, and then who they are as a person, their mind, body, spirit, and soul. And if you value that whole person and you give them opportunities now to empower them, there's the E. Now, go and be the best version of yourself. Remember when we all learned how to ride a bike? I'm guessing we all shared a similar experience, right? We started with training wheels, and then we kind of got a little more aggressive, and they took the training wheels off, and mom or dad or brother or sister kind of helped us, down the street until we were allowed to pedal by ourselves. And remember that sense of freedom we felt when we were able to finally pedal by ourselves and get the hang of it? The world was our oyster because now we could go anywhere. We were mobile. I lived on my bike as a kid. So by empowering somebody and giving them the resources and the tools to grow up into their full potential, that's how we're going to attract and train and recognize and reward and retain our younger end of the workforce.
Yeah,
I have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go for it, Kristi.
So, Mark, what is your background in HR? Like, how is it that you have so much in your head you can put out 2 books? That's really incredible.
Well, no, but my background is marketing and brand building and executive management. So I've been a president. So I've had, HR reporting to me. While I've been a CMO, I have partnered with HR because I believe for any good marketer, you have to be in charge of the whole brand, not just the external brand and do the media and the creative and all that. It's also the internal brand and being able to ensure that those on the front lines are the ones that have to make, deliver on the promises that the marketers make, right? So everyone has to be aligned with what's the goal of the brand and how do we work together to achieve it. And you can't do that without people, and you can't do people without HR. So I've had the blessings to work with some tremendous talent leaders who allowed me to partner with them and didn't say, this is my turf, you stay over in marketing. Same thing in operations, okay? If you don't have a good relationship with your chief operating officer or your chief financial officer, you're not going to get anything done. Because at the end of the day, the chief financial officer says, yep, you're going to get this budget to do what you said you were going to do. And the operators say, yep, we trust you to help drive sales, and we're going to get our operators trained up to support whatever program that you put out there. And that's the key word, is trust. And to me, that's what it's all about. Any relationship, I don't care if it's personal or professional, has got to be founded on a foundation of trust.
That's really interesting. I didn't know you were putting out a second book. Bravo.
Well, it's a chapter, and I got to it's a compilation book, so there's many authors, but it's on that whole concept of 4D branding that I talked about earlier, and with the idea that words matter. So I'm happy to send it to the chapter itself, so you don't have to buy the whole book to anybody who would like to read it. And I'm happy to offer also to your listeners a free consultation and viewers to anyone who would like to learn more.
Cool. All right, guys, we got to get into the question of the day. Are you guys ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
Kristi, as soon as she's done asking, then just answer it, and I'll play the right video. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Sunitha Levin, and I work at Burns & McDonnell, helping advance telecommunications across the U.S. My question for today is, how do you manage your time, and how much is it worth to you?
Well, for an attorney, you should know this exactly.
Yeah, attorneys are great at this.
She knows how to bill for her time, that's for sure.
Right.
There's that. In 6-minute increments. So it's something that I've learned over the years, and I think this is for anybody. You learn how to manage your time, and it's because things get to maybe an extreme level. Stress level is high, anxiety is high, sleep is low. And you finally are just like, I've had it. I'm going to figure out how to manage my time better and improve all of these things that aren't going well. And I have gotten really good at, well, first of all, my time is very valuable to me. But I've gotten very good at when I stop working in the evening, I don't check my email. My husband is constantly looking at his phone and checking emails and I don't want to do that, because if it's something that is going to stress me out, but I don't want to deal with it until the next day, I'm just going to think about it unnecessarily until I get back to work. And so I'm good at not checking emails. I turn off my phone system, which now rings through my computer, which I bring home every night. So I have the settings so that it shuts off. And then in the morning, I don't check my emails until I'm ready to work again. Oh, AJ's calling me out.
That's not true.
I think
sporadically is what you're trying to say.
Huh?
You do it sporadically.
I think I'm pretty good at not. I've learned. So one of my favorite parts of the day is my drive into work, and at least the first half. Once I get closer to the office, the stress level goes up a little bit, which is probably normal for everyone. But I love that drive to work. And if I read an email before my drive that I'm stressed about, I feel like road rage increases because I'm dying to get to work and respond to whatever the situation is. Like, just my stress level's higher. I'm not enjoying NPR as much, which I really want to listen to on my way in. And it's just not worth it. It's dumb. So that's kind of how I've learned to manage some of my time.
Good job. All right.
Yeah, we all have to check, I think, on occasion. That's different.
That is kind of true. I love like puzzle games on my phone.
I love games on the phone. That's just us showing us our age, AJ. Okay, quit calling us out.
Well, I think when you have to process really hard information during the day, you seek to relax your brain. And so I'm the opposite. I actually like watching informative news, which I think tells me, did I really do anything that productive during the day? Do I want to be more like Kristi and Aaron that actually solved problems so I could play games on my phone? So I don't think it's a negative thing. But what you're saying is you try to shut it down.
I do, yes. And games are actually, it's like a shutting off the brain, focusing on, you have to focus kind of thing. And yeah.
All right, Mark. First of all, I want to pull up this comment from Elizabeth. She said, huge shout out to everything Mark just said. Aligning purpose with action is the key. And yes, words matter. Thank you, Mark. How do you prioritize your time?
Yeah, and because words matter, I hope you will indulge me in allowing me to change the question to, how do I manage my energy better?
Okay, but
here's the difference. I'm going to get to time, but time is a relative measurement, right? There's 24 hours in a day, right? But your energy ebbs and flows throughout the day. So I'm more productive in the afternoon or evening, whereas a lot of people are ready to shut it down. They're more morning people, right? Well, I grew up as a age group swimmer and had to be in the water at like 6 a.m. And so all my life, I always had to get up early. And now that I'm older, I don't have to. I find that I don't like to. And so that's not where my energy is at its peak. And so once you kind of understand when you're most productive and your energy levels are at their peak, you can then schedule your most pressing problem assignments or projects during that time. Like if I have to work on a presentation for a client and I really need undivided attention, I don't just schedule it willy-nilly. I schedule it during the day when I feel like I'll be more productive and least distracted. Because while I've never been diagnosed with ADHD, I got to believe I got it. Because when I'm hyper-focused, I can get anything done, but it takes me a while to get there, right? And so knowing that allows me to schedule tasks that aren't as important during times when I don't need to be as energetic, if that makes sense to you. And I think also it's about setting boundaries. I love what Kristi said about what she will or won't do. And that's a boundary that you need to have. Then another time management technique that I learned maybe a few years ago is called the Pomodoro technique, where you kind of work 20, it's like, tech industry calls them sprints. So it's like you work 25 minutes, you take 5 minutes off. You work 25 minutes, take 5 minutes off. Work 25 minutes, take 5 minutes off, and the next time you're going to take a half hour. And then you're going to, during that 5 minutes, you're going to get up, you're going to go do something regenerative. I don't know if it's getting a new cup of coffee or if it's going outside and getting a breath of fresh air, whatever it is for you. So I put little carrots throughout my day because while Kristi may like to play puzzles online, I am a huge crossword and Sudoku fanatic. Okay. Sorry, I just love it. And for me, it allows me to get my brain into a different mode. So then when I go back to my work, I feel like their ideas come to me that maybe weren't there before. It's almost like it unblocks some of that the synapses that weren't firing quite as well as I had hoped that they would. So these are just little techniques on time management, boundaries, but really important is energy management, I believe.
Aaron, don't you do that?
What do I do?
And like you put things that are really pressing during the most productive time for you.
Yeah. I calendar block pretty heavily too. But I like the work 25, take 5 off. I kind of sometimes go too much back to back that I'm just like exhausted, especially in post-COVID world, right? Where everything's on Zoom. We had decided to put all our client meetings on Wednesdays because it does make more sense, but it makes my Wednesdays, like we call them hell days. Although I love speaking to my clients, I speak to a big majority every Wednesday, right? Like I have 10 to 12 meetings every Wednesday. So it's a lot. But I like that 25 to 5 minutes off.
I learned it the hard way because for me, I was always overscheduling. One of the worst things that I do is overschedule and have my eyes bigger than my stomach mentality as it relates to what I can get accomplished. And what often happens is, people schedule for whatever reason in hour blocks. Why an hour? I don't know. It's in my book. You can read about it.
I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty.
Yeah. And so what happens is you get to the end of the hour and another meeting starts and you don't have time to really get prepared for the next meeting. And so it's a downward spiral of productivity because you're not really prepped. And I'm a big believer in, meetings where only the right people are scheduled and have agenda ahead of time, have pre-reads ahead of time. And so that when your time starts, it doesn't need to be that. And then make sure at the end you close with a recap of what did we agree and who does what by when. And then distribute the notes to whoever wasn't there that just needs to know. And all of a sudden your time is going to open up to you if you manage meetings well. Meetings are the time suck of all time sucks.
We actually record all of our meetings now. And then our creatives specifically, we give them the timestamps of where to watch the meeting when they need to watch the meeting, right? So they can hear it from the client's mouth without having to take we used to have all the creatives in every meeting, which they hated as well.
They hate that.
Right. And so that is one of the best things that's happened post-COVID is being able to record every single meeting. So
Good idea. Good idea.
yeah. We love that.
Random thing about your guys' carrots about blocking your 5 minutes of time. People that were shown to work the whole day and then exercise before or after, or people that did not exercise, but they just I don't want to say 25 minutes or I think it was like every 30, they had to get up and walk around. Their blood and glucose levels were the same of those as people exercising.
Oh, wow.
So just getting up and walking around was the same as someone doing 30 minutes of exercise before or after work, as opposed to just walking around for a couple of minutes. So there's a little bit something to the blocking of what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, I love that. I'm glad to hear that too.
I like that. Okay, we've got I want to ask this question because we can fit it in today. First of all, we're halfway through October. How the heck did that happen? Does anybody know? Kristi, how has 2023 been for you? And a lot of people are doing their 2024 planning. So what are you focusing on for 2024 as you close out 2023?
Oh gosh. Well, I don't know that I necessarily have much focus for 2024, I'll admit. But as far as 2023, so I just moved offices in mid-August, and I'm in this new location that I'm trying to feel out. I'm doing different tech things. Like you heard earlier, my phone is now connected to my computer, rather than me having like a phone sitting on my desk. And I don't know how to work most of this stuff. AJ's better at it and he helps me. But I'm trying to get out. I came from a very traditional office setting where there's a receptionist and everyone has their own enclosed offices and there's conference rooms everywhere, to a less traditional setting from a technological standpoint. And so it's been interesting. But this is kind of a downer note, but I have a lot more, and Mark was kind of talking about this earlier with the millennials and the younger generations, but I unfortunately have more 20s and 30s whose assets or whose estates I'm needing to probate. And I don't know if it's from, I don't know necessarily caused, probably the pandemic, a little bit of the opioid fentanyl crisis, but I'm seeing a lot more suicide, a lot more overdose. And I have parents who look like zombies coming into my office and not knowing, ever thinking in a million years that, they'd be needing to probate their kids' stuff. And they do have stuff. There's, young folks have houses and bank accounts, of course, and vehicles and things that, I'm sure they themselves never thought they needed to do any planning at their age. But I'm seeing that more and more, and it's been kind of a challenge this year. But one of the things I guess I do want to focus on seeing this, because these are probably the hardest cases that I handle, just because, not that someone who's 85 you think should die more. It's just the natural course of life exists there more so than someone in their 20s and 30s. Is that you're not too young to, you buy a house, your first house, you may not have a spouse, you may not have kids, but immediately, you don't have to spend a ton of money. You don't have to, do anything complicated, but follow up your closing with the beneficiary deed. You can always change it as things in life change. You can do the same with bank accounts, it's just stuff that you don't necessarily know to think about, but something I feel like is a focus I need to put in front of people. So that's, I guess, a kind of a sad focus of mine, and I'm sorry to be a downer, but maybe Mark has something more positive for him.
Can you do that with, I heard a horrible story about electrical bills, about not being able to get out. He was saying in bank accounts, I had not heard, but can you do that with, you think of a will and a trust like that, but you don't think of bank accounts like that. So what advice do you have? Meaning you can put I can say, hey, if I die, Aaron is on my bank account. Or
right.
Aaron's on my electrical bill.
Put me on there.
Yeah, usually you can't share like your debt with somebody else without their permission. AJ sees that a lot, actually. Like an ex-spouse will take out a credit card in your name. But as
a current spouse.
Oh, a current spouse. Okay. So when you, obviously, if you own an asset jointly with your spouse will take ownership after you die. But if you aren't married, you can put a payable on death designation when you open the account. I don't think you should ever make someone a joint account holder who's not a spouse, like a parent or a child or a sibling, because if something goes awry in the
Wait, is that how you
Yes,
know each other? Is that how you guys know each other?
No, we have been
I'm joking.
friends. We were in a B&I group like 15 years ago together.
Yeah. No,
But yeah, she's helped me out.
We digress.
Some bad decisions. I do think it's so funny. You're such an attorney, Kristi, because even when you were talking about like older people dying, you're like, I'm not saying you shouldn't have, like, you always have like those attorney things to make sure to cover all the bases. Absolutely, 85-year-olds should be dying before kids. Absolutely. But you're such an attorney. You're like, I'm not saying that's true. But natural sense of life. I love you so much. All right, Mark, what are you looking forward to for 2024?
Well, I would say I'm looking forward to putting together a will.
You don't have one?
No, I'm saying I would, but I already did last spring. And I had to, I've had a few during my lifetime, one in Georgia, one in California, and moving here. And unfortunately got divorced a few years ago. So when you asked the question, Scott, I knew where you were going with that because we have a joint bank account and we can't separate each other from the bank account for whatever reason. And so you just basically, you can dissolve it. But I already had some things already flowing into it that I didn't want to have to change over to a new account. So I just left it. And we have a very amicable relationship. And so there'll be times where one of our daughters, needs money or, whatever, I still have one on my phone bill. So anyway, that's all good. But I was able to do it last year. And for me, I'll turn it into a bright spot because with this LEAF model, I have the goal of donating money for whatever LEAF growth ventures occur from it to follow the LEAF model and what it stands for. So leadership would go to big brothers, big sisters. I was one, and I can personally attest to the importance of leadership to a 10-year-old boy whose father was in prison for molesting him. Engagement would be Habitat for Humanity, because I believe everybody deserves the safety and security and dignity of a roof over their head. Accountability would be Salvation Army, because they have a great addiction recovery program. And my dad was an alcoholic, and his mom and his dad. So I grew up in that environment. And then fulfillment would be No Kid Hungry. And that's because I believe all children deserve to have a nutritious meal so they can grow into their full potential. And so the common denominator among all four is children, the most vulnerable among us. So how can I stand up and talk about purposeful growth and fulfilling your true growth potential when there are kids that don't have some of the most basic human needs met, or maybe not living in an environment where they can grow into their full potential? So not only am I looking at giving money away from speaking, consulting, and whatever, I put those foundations into my will, along with a couple of churches I've been blessed to have been part of, and my family and whatnot. And, as it relates to 2023, I think it's a big deal, having that peace of mind that if, God forbid, I get struck by lightning or hit by a bus, then people are going to get taken care of, and whatever I've been blessed to earn on this earth will go to people and help meet their needs. And so in 2024, I'm really trying to build up the business end of this consortium of charities so that I can do it in a positive way while I'm still alive. That's why I call it living a living legacy, not a legacy where you're bequeathing something after someone's dead and buried, but living it every day and how you show up and how you can help people along their growth journey. And that's really what I'm looking forward to in 2024. We'll see how it goes.
Can I say a lawyery type thing as a non-lawyer? I don't suggest always keeping your account open with your ex, because my friend's ex-wife, who she's very amicable, just cleared the whole thing out. She's got no fight in it right now. So
there's not much in there, but it's just open in case there needs to be a flow of money. So I'm not worried about it.
She had her paycheck going in there and her bonus went in there. All of a sudden they weren't amicable. Yeah. So don't take that from our show. But besides that, take everything else Mark said. Okay, Scott, ask a stupid icebreaker.
That was an incredibly good answer from Mark, though. But
it was really good.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure that nobody says I
but
thought
he clarified it at the end.
It literally just happened. That's why it was top of mind. Okay, ask one of your stupid icebreakers you like so much, and then we're gonna be done.
You cannot say a family member, but I'd like to know what teacher inspired you, Kristi, and why.
Can Mark go first so I can think about it?
Yeah.
I've got an easy answer. Actually, I have many, but I'm going to go with one. And his name is Dr. Tim Bingston. And he was a professor of mine at KU. And Kristi, I wanted to be a lawyer. And so I went to KU with the understanding that, you can't major in pre-law. And I said, well, what's going to be a major that'll prepare me best for law school and being a lawyer when I hopefully graduate from that? And they said, well, you're going to do a lot of reading, a lot of research, obviously a lot of writing and critical thinking and presentations as a lawyer. Have you thought about the School of Journalism? And KU's got one of the top school of journalism in the country. I said, okay, sure. And I'm doing it because I'm thinking it's going to prepare me to be a lawyer. Well, there's a professor who saw something in me I didn't see in myself. And he said, hey, Mark, I'm sure you'd be a good lawyer, but you're really pretty good in this marketing communications area. And if you thought about going to grad school instead of law school? And I said, no. And I'm just doing this to prepare me for law school. Well, now it's the time I got to make a decision. Do I take the LSAT or the GRE or the GMAT? And I end up going to graduate school at Northwestern and had the good fortune of learning integrated marketing communications at the feet of the master, a guy named Professor Don Schultz, who came up with that concept. And so he literally changed my life. And so I was fortunate about 10 years ago to put together an endowed award in his name at KU that every spring goes to a instructor who teaches beyond the classroom and kind of exemplifies Tim's ability to mentor versus just teach. And so for me, it's an easy answer because he literally changed the trajectory of my life and career because of his care and seeing something in me I didn't see in myself.
That's cool. How about you, Kristi? That's really cool.
So mine, I would say my 6th grade teacher, Mr. Dempsey, Joel Dempsey, I went to Prairie, which burned down in 4th grade, which at the time I thought was really cool. But then I ended up at Shawnee Mission East. And Mr. Dempsey was my 6th grade teacher who my parents would describe. When I was in 1st grade, his class was next to my 1st grade class, and he taught 6th. And he yelled a lot. He was a bard and very much a thespian, and just was very animated and would. I don't know if his teaching style would pass muster today because we've gotten so sensitive, I think, but he was a really awesome, inspirational guy, but he scared me so much. And when I found out going into 6th grade, he was going to be my teacher, I cried and cried and cried. And he ended up being my favorite ever. He would have his classes each year put on plays. And he also was just a brilliant academic instructor. And I was a very shy kid, and he kind of brought me out of my shell, getting me into theater. And I did end up pursuing, I was a thespian in high school, and then my bachelor's degree is in dance. I just loved being on the stage. But he also, I think, even though speaking, when you're an attorney and you speak, you're not that great at it maybe at first, and you develop muscles for it. I think he helped me even at a younger age really develop that. And he was just cool. Like someone who, it's one of those things where you expect the least and you cry over it, and it ends up being one of the best years of your life. So shout out to Joel Dempsey. He lives up in Maine now, probably still in his boxcar. And he runs the Bard Theater up there, which at least he did when I was little. So
how about you, Scott?
I had a coach that taught psychology, and I got in a lot of trouble, and he would make me eat lunch with him during football season so I could not plan a keg party. And I know it sounds silly, but it just, I mean, probably kept me out of trouble, and I probably owe them a lot because I got in a lot of trouble.
Okay.
What about you, Aaron?
I don't have one. I literally
No teachers, nothing.
I went to like 12 schools growing up, and
Didn't know you
I
went
was
to
always a
12.
new kid, and I couldn't tell you one good thing. There was a TA. This is probably the closest I could get. There was a TA at KU. It was my meteorology TA, and he caught us cheating because it was the worst class ever. And it was one of those classes where you did like the
Hard
labs.
class.
It's the labs here, and then you went. Yeah, I literally didn't know what meteorology was when I signed up for it. I just didn't want to take biology. And then you went to the things to take to the professor, right? And then you do the test like that. So he caught my friend and I cheating in the professor piece. But I learned to negotiate because I did not get caught, or he did not turn me in, because I negotiated a deal to take him out to this bar, my friend and I, because we knew the door guy and he could never get in this bar, for him not to turn us in. And so I guess maybe he taught me the art of negotiation. I'm really good at that now. I literally, like, when people talk about their favorite teacher and this and that, I don't like any of them. Like, none of them, like, I must have just been the worst kid, because not one of them was ever like, I could see, like Mark said, I could see in you what others can. Now they were all like, nah, this is a waste of my
I'm going
time.
to get you into this bar, and I'm going to have lunch with them, so I won't throw a cake party. I think, there's a little bit of a theme here, Aaron. I don't think, there was no inspiration like Kristi and Mark or anything. It was like, I'm going to keep you out of trouble.
Yeah. I'm noticing a theme as well. That's good observation.
Woo, didn't get kicked out of school.
And now they take Scott and I both speak at KU. So just so you guys know how far this has gone down the rabbit hole, I'm not sure this is good. So
This is a great conversation.
thank you guys so much for being such troopers. I know you didn't sign up to be half of the conversation today, but you were. We really appreciate it, Kristi and Mark. Thank you so much, Scott, for being such a great co-host. Thank you to Burns & McDonnell and Bacon Blue Valley for being the best sponsors ever. We will see you same time, same place.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm saying is because the week after that, we're going to have a Monday show, and Peter Maluk will be our guest. So I just wanted to make sure it wasn't next week. So next week we'll be here Tuesday, same time, same place. Until then, try to stay warm. It's kind of chilly out. We'll see you later. DM me if you know more about Taylor. Bye.